Welcome to Timberborn and the settlement of Whitewater. In this episode, we're going to be building out some terraced water fields, making use of that new green space in the upper plateau, and redoing some of our bad water so we can start collecting some soil. In last episode, we had a fairly big terraforming effort. We reconverted all of this upper plateau area on this side of the map to green. And with it, we got all of this green space to work with. So one of the things I want to do in this episode is I want to start making use of this. The second thing I want to do is start looking at here. Now this is kind of a dead space, but I think there's some interesting things we might be able to build with like a terraced rice paddy waterfall. So that's going to be kind of my goal for this episode. So one of the first things I'm thinking is if I want to actually grow rice paddies or like a layered kind of water farm here, I'm going to need dirt. And dirt is something that we are not yet collecting. And since that's going to take a while, I'm going to queue that up first before we start planting anything. So extracting dirt, this is actually something I've never bothered to do in the game before. So this is the first for me. It requires a dirt extractor and it's going to require some extract. And since that's right in here, I'm thinking right over in this area may be a good place to plop one down. So first off, let's unlock it and see how big this thing is. Oh, it's a monster. This guy is pretty big, and I'm guessing he's going to take power. So we've got the whole power issue to deal with too. If I were to dynamite these three columns here, I think this would be a good spot down here. I'd have extra space for some storage because these are all the dirt that you extract is going to have to go into an underground pile. And then for power, I think what we can do is tap in to this grist mill right here. We can run that power all the way across. This is a little chaotic. I think I'm going to do a little bit of reorganization here with these bad water pumps. So I'm going to continue expanding a road over there. We'll tear out all those dead trees. Now I need somebody to dynamite this. So we're going to put 3 dynamite down in all of those spots. While they're working on that, let's tap into the power supply. Actually, now that I see it, I'm going to tap into the power supply up here. So, sorry beavers, the carousel is going to be out of commission. We'll build a T-junction. I'm really looking forward to the vertical power shafts that got coming soon. This would have made that so much easier. And I've got to get some way for the beavers to actually build this, because they can't get access to all these things. I will tear out these stairs afterwards. That's just to help them build. First round of dynamite is ready to go. And then we can just stack a little bit more to get that flat. Something I didn't consider. Does this all need to be on solid ground or just the drill part? Oh, well. Okay, that is really interesting. So I'm guessing just the part that's actually drilling down needs to be on there. So I don't really need as much clearance as I thought I did. Because that means I could shift this all the way over here. Yeah, that is what we're gonna do. Okay, now we can remove these temporary stairs. And that's going to give us enough space to put in that excavator now. Just like that, and then we can just run the power up in there. Before I cover some of this up, I think what I'm going to do is deepen it just a little bit. Because now that we've kind of cleared everything, we need our bad water pumps back. For the bad water pumps, I think what I'm going to do is just line them up this way. Just down the run. And while we're here, let's also just make a little floodgate at the end. Oh, I didn't realize this. So we have this built, and it's complaining about no door. The door is actually on the second floor. I didn't expect that. I thought it was going to be right on the top. Well, thankfully, we're not really using this road for anything. We just make a little ladder that goes up and down. Dynamite's now ready, so let's go ahead and deepen that water. And I'm going to lay down a little bit of extra platforms there. One of the things I've noticed is that we've always had mostly a full extract, mostly a full bad water tank. That's because we've got medium tanks here. So with this rejiggering around, what I'm going to do is upgrade these to large tanks. So if I can put 2 large tanks side by side, that's going to give us a lot more space in here. We'll make this one extract now, so immediately adjacent to the extract centrifuge, and this one's going to be our bad water. And then we're going to get everybody to dump this one. So extract been converted over, and you can really see that difference between a medium tank and a large tank. Like a medium tank barely filled any of that large tank. So we'll get rid of that. And now we can go ahead and place down our replacement bad water pumps. And we can even have a space for a little bit of decorations. Oh, and look at that. You can already see the excavator starting to dig down. Okay, that's a good sign. Now we need a place to put that dirt, because I noticed they're full. And I want to have the option to do a lot of terraforming. So we're going to throw down multiple large warehouses. I'm going to just stack them here and here. There's a ton of dirt. This is an overkill. Like, given how big underground piles are, we're going to have a lot of storage. Something I didn't think of. As this excavator digs down, the bad water is going to flow in there. It doesn't seem to impact their digging, but that is kind of interesting. Yeah, as long as it doesn't bother their digging, I'm fine with it. Hey, overall, I'd say that's a pretty good refactor. We got a lot of extra space out of that. Now, on to what we originally set out to do, which is building up here. We'll wait to get some dirt in our supply before I tackle this kind of terrace, but let's take a look at this farmland up here. In the future, I think this would be a good place for a separate district. I don't want to mess with districts just yet, because it's going to mess up all my happiness. I think I'm just going to make it part of the regular district. And we're going to want to get a little bit more green space there, and we're going to want to get rid of this. So let's set this in motion first, because that's going to be a while. This is easily going to take 2 large underground warehouses worth of supply. We'll take a lot of scavengers there. And then for this, we're going to need just a little bit more dynamite to get rid of that dead space. Is that enough to get that dead space gone? I wish there was some way to inspect the fertility of a ground space. You'll notice over here, we did get away with planting on some of that like partially green area. I don't know if I can get away with the same thing here. Try just a little bit more. And I know I'm destroying more green space than I'm getting back, but it just bothers me too much to leave a little corner of the map not green. And that is enough. Okay, cool. Now let's go ahead and place down some foresters. So a forester here is going to be enough to cover everything in there. He's going to need a place to put all those. And we'll need a couple lumberjacks. And then we're going to go oak. Oak for all of this. It is going to be a massive supply of oak trees. And then over here, I think this is going to be farmland. So let's see, if I were to put down a farmhouse, yeah, that will cover easily all that area. So what I'm going to do is basically build this other road here, and then I'm going to tear out the old road, and that gives us access to potentially build on top of the lake. Now, for what we're going to harvest, the food that we're always running low on are carrots, and I think sunflower seeds. So I'm going to do that. This is way overkill for food supply for what we need, but I'm going to put carrots down in here, and then a whole massive supply of sunflowers. Oh, bad tide. Actually, I kind of do prefer the bad tides now, considering how short the droughts are on it. But anyways, we're going to need a place to put all of these. And I'm going to continue that pattern of building on top of the water, just to maximize space. I'm going to leave space here in case I need an extra farm. I don't know if this is going to be too much farm for these beavers to handle. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to build some extra platforms for some storage. So one of these is going to be our sunflowers, and the other one will be our carrots. Now, as a quick detour, we do have a lot of vacancies. So before we get into our next terraforming, I think we're going to boost our number of beavers, because I can see they're going to struggle to even keep some of this new stuff running. I think we can extend our main housing block a little bit more, but this is just like a short-term solution. I think we're eventually going to need a better answer to this. If I dig a little bit, I think I can get another double lodge down there. Yeah, this is very dense housing. I kind of like this type of housing a little bit better. Maybe designed slightly different, but a little bit more spread out, not, you know, very sad industrial housing. Later game, I'll probably revisit this. Maybe tear out some of these trees, make downtown look a little bit nicer. Okay, that will give us a little bit of a population boost. Okay, now up to the main project I've been looking forward to. I really want to change this kind of dead part of the map into terraced farmland. So if you've ever seen photos of like terraced rice paddies where you've got water going down the side of the hill, that's what I have in mind for here. And so it's going to take a combination of dynamite as well as dirt. It's not going to be efficient. So if you're looking for like a super efficient build, this is not it. This is just something that I think is going to look interesting and kind of go with the folktale vibe. First thing we need to do is get rid of all these dead trees so I can start actually building things. So all these dead trees, they have got to go. And it is really kind of annoying. But basically when I have to tear out these trees, I just make all these temporary roads, which is really annoying when you've got this really irregular shape. If you know of a better way to do this than what I'm doing, I would love to hear it. We tore out all the trees. Oh, no, we've got one left. One last straggler. Now we actually have everything. We're flush with cash. I'm going to just delete everything, and I don't care about getting the resources. And it looks like one poor beaver actually climbed up everything while I was tearing everything away. Now we have to mount a rescue operation to get him off. Go on and get out of there. Now it's time to plan. So I'm going to pause this just so we have some time to think. If we're going to do a gradual terrace all the way to the ground, that would mean that we're ending here. I think I'm going to have one of the terraces here at this level, just so it's flush with the trees. I don't want to tear out any of these things. So that would mean that this would have to be down one level deep to get it full of water. Like we'd basically dynamite in one level like that. Then maybe we could fill in this level. That would mean that we'd get dirt up like this. So this would ultimately be clear. This is going to be filled with one layer deep of water. Next order of business. I'm kind of just going backwards up everything. So I'm going to slowly just make this higher and higher and higher as we go. And I think over here is where we're going to start slowly moving up kind of that terrace. So let's say if we were to fill in a bit like this. And I don't want it to be too square. Like I think of those photos of like the rice paddies. Everything is kind of, they have kind of these like curves and waves to it. So I want to recreate something like that. Again, we've got that shape, but then the inside is ultimately going to be empty. That's where the water is going to be. And that means we're going to need to dynamite some of this out. Let's get that going so the beavers have something to do. While they're working on that, I want to think of how I want this part to shape up. Because you notice it's pretty steep, so what we're going to have to do is end up dynamiting into the mountain to kind of make this terrace. And I think what I'm going to do, instead of just doing it one terrace up, so I'm going to have one terrace maybe go this way to have a waterfall, and I think I'm going to build another terrace into the falls here. And this is going to mean we're going to have to fill in, I think, some of this area too. So let's plop all of this down too. We don't really need this long scaffolding. This is a way big callback from early on. I'm going to delete that. Start shaping it up a little bit more. How are the beavers doing with this first set of dirt? Well, pretty good, except they stranded their buddy. What are you doing that for, guys? You gotta get them out of there. You're gonna put them in a pit and then dynamite around it. This is not a work-safe environment. There you go, now we can get out. We've got a little spillage. I think I forgot to open up this creek down at the end here. And so what that was doing is my lake was spilling over into this, so we're getting a little taste of what the rice paddy will look like eventually. Now I'm gonna dynamite that out, just so we can start kind of going up the hill. And, you know, to speed up the building, I think I'm going to hold off on some of the TNT in here, because it's just going to make it really awkward, and I'm going to build platforms. Like, we know where all the TNT is going to go. That's fine. We are mining a massive amount of dirt, so we've got 900 dirt to go. That's going to be more than enough, I think, to build this out. I think we've kind of started shaping out what this is going to look like. So if this is going to be a supply of water, I think we need to dynamite some of this cliff off. I noticed the beavers weren't building all of this in here, and I discovered something of terraforming that I didn't know. The beavers will build in the order of the arrows. So in this case, a beaver will not build this until this block, until the block preceding it in the arrow is built first. So in this case, they're not building any of this because they can't build these. That's really interesting. So in my case, I want to build from the bottom up. I need the arrows all pointing the other direction. So in this case, I would want those arrows that way, and then now I want them this way. So the beavers are going to build in this direction to get this flat, and then they're going to build left to right to get these other ones. That's really tricky. You really got to think of how you place those down. Okay, let's see if that helps. Let's see if they can build that segment now. Okay, that seemed to do the trick and unlock it. Okay, I'm just going to slowly start peeling back some of that ground. Now, the next area, I was mentioning before, I want to make this kind of branch. So in this case, I'm going to have a waterfall come down from this platform. I think a waterfall from up here would be interesting too. So that would put this land up here at like this height, right around there. So if we want to get up to that level, we're going to have to build pretty tall stairs. We're going to build in this direction for the ground. Okay, cool. That's going to start getting them high enough. And then this is going to start to be TNT'd away. We might get some assistance from the top, because we're going to have to blast into the side of this mountain, basically, to get this terrace going. So the people from the top can start laying down dynamite to go down. What I think makes this build tricky is that it's both additive and destructive. Like, in most of the construction I do, I can just, like this dam, for example, I could just lay it all down, figure out the schematic, and just let the beavers work. In this case, it's very iterative. Like, I can't plan for some things until I've dynamited things out or added dirt. So this surprisingly is one of the trickier builds I've done in terms of figuring out how it's going to end up. Okay, there is the next kind of patty. And I think I'm going to do a more gradual one for the next tier. Okay, we can see things are starting to take a little bit more shape. I'm slowly still blasting into the side of this mountain just to make the terraces. And you can see I'm making kind of multiple levels. So we've got this level here, this level will be next. This level that's going to wrap around a bit. And I'm thinking I'm having kind of like a point jutting out that's going to be steeper than the rest. This is so jagged. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten that a little bit just to make it easier to work with. I want everything at the same height. I'm probably going to dynamite some of that away anyways. That's a little inefficient. This is going to be a terrace, a short one. This one will also be a terrace, so I think it needs to go down at least one more for a lot of this space. And you can see this is where we're going to start dynamiting into the side of the mountain to make this a little bit more gradual. And I want that point, the point that's going to stick out. I think it's going to be maybe out here. So you can see we've started to make progress dynamiting into the edge of the mountain. And we're just going to extend that a little bit more now. And I'm still going to carve in a little bit. I think I want a bunch of one height terraced rises for a little bit in here. So we're going to have to keep on digging into this mountain. Okay, starting to look interesting. I think this one needs to go down at least another one down. So I want that terrace a little bit wider. It's slowly starting to take shape now. The next thing I'm going to do is I need to get this terrace kind of moving up around here. And we're ready for our next round of TNT. We have really eaten into the side of this mountain. I think we're almost to the last patty that we're going to have to flatten out. There can be water up at this top level, and then we're going to go down one to get to this kind of outcropping. Thinking something like that is going to be the last terrace. So we're going to have this big flat terrace that's going to take a lot, and then we'll have the final one that it's flush with our water supply right up in there. I think this looks pretty interesting. I think now we're ready to actually dig some of this stuff out. So what we're going to do is first get rid of all those stairs, and then just go layer by layer putting down dynamite. And now we need a few roads and access points to actually get there to lay it down. Beavers will get to busy work putting everything in place. And before you know it, we're already ready to start deepening that first pool. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Yeah, as we deepen the second one, you can get kind of a feel of what this is going to look like. Let's try that on the top layer too now. I think this is going to look really interesting once we get water into it. Now that we've got the pools outlined, our next step is going to be to make space for water to flow from one terrace to the next. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to each of these terraces and then dynamite an area out and replace it with a floodgate. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. We're in the middle of a drought, so I can't actually get this flowing yet, but what I could do is maybe see where we could put our farms. So we're going to want a couple water farms in here, and we can be strategic of where we put them. Yeah, somebody down here is going to cover basically all of the lower terraces, so somewhere, this would be like a good spot, I think, for somebody. And then we're going to need somebody up here to get this part. If we put somebody on this cliff face, that would actually do quite nicely. Now these pools are going to be tricky because they're so small. Any house I make is going to take up like a lot of the potential farmable land. That would cover a good chunk of it. And then if I got somebody up here, he could cover the other part. I think something here, it would be nice and snug and kind of fit in there. I think the final place is going to be up here because that's going to get all the top pool, and then we'll also get some of this. So I want to drain some of this first before I see exactly what that's going to look like. That would give it access to all of that, and then I think we just need a way up to the high point. So we'll put down a few stairs and a little bit of extra roads. Okay, and then I think the other thing we're going to need to solve is where to actually store all this food. And you know, to at least mitigate some of the walking that they're going to do, I think I'm going to have the top half of the map take care of cattails, and then the bottom half are going to do spatterdock. And then what I can do is I can put one warehouse for the top farms, and then one warehouse for the bottom ones. And, maybe what would be better, instead of having one terrace up here, would actually be to dynamite this all the way out to have 3 levels of water. That would give me control so that this doesn't dry out so quickly during the bad season. But even in this drought that we've had, this would have let us, keep all of this alive. We've got 2 days left, and then I think we're basically ready to start flooding this in to see what this looks like. So let's see. I think we can assign the food that we want them to grow, and then they're not going to grow it until we actually have, the water in there. So like I mentioned, the lower half is all going to get spatterdock, and then the upper half is going to get the cattails. Now, if you're a new player and wondering if this is the way that you should be doing water farms, the answer is no. This is frankly insane what I'm doing. It's something I've wanted to do before, and I've never had an excuse to build it, and frankly, I just want to see how it works. I think it'd just be really interesting to see what this looks like once the water is populated in there. Here we are at the end of the drought, so let's wait for that water level to get high again. I think we're finally ready to start populating this with water. We've got some green, we've got the farmers busy in action. Now eventually it's going to get high enough, it's going to trigger this next waterfall. And I want to trigger it on both sides. So I'm hoping that both sides are going to let at least some water out. Okay, there we go. Actually, that worked great. All 4 of them triggered at the same time. And you'll notice that wherever we have kind of this diagonal cut, we get a little bit of this rendering artifact. Yeah, I'm not sure if I really like that. Might have to change that. Okay, we've got more water coming in here. Perfect. You can see it slowly going down the terrace. There you go. You can see water flowing underneath that farmhouse. And here we are with water all the way to the end. I think that looks pretty cool. But I think there's a couple things we could potentially improve. First are these rendering artifacts. I think it looks a little bit messy with all these kind of clipping on each of the corners. And the second one is these floodgates. I know this gives me the ability to control the height, but with them all sticking up everywhere, I think it just makes everything look a little bit too busy. First thing I'm going to do is delete all the floodgates, and then we're just going to replace them with regular dams. Next, I'm going to go to every place where there's a diagonal gap. I'm going to fill it with dirt. It reduces the farmable land, but it's going to get rid of that kind of rendering artifact. I think that looks a lot cleaner without all the floodgates and all those extra waterfalls. Now, I have a feeling this is going to be a little bit of a pain to keep watered all the time, given it's going to evaporate so quickly. But this is kind of a build I've wanted to do for a while, so I'm happy with how it turned out. But I think that's going to do it for this episode. We've got some new farmland, some new trees in the upper kind of plateau. Redid our bad water supply and started getting soil. It made this completely ridiculous terraced water fields. As always, I hope you've been enjoying these episodes, and I hope to catch you next time.